Thank you for purchasing the TriTeq BevIQ lock kit. Your package should contain the following components: a receiver, a power harness, a latch harness, 2 receiver mounting brackets, a latch module, the BevIQ housing, the BevIQ T-handle, the IQ CPU, and a plastic bag of installation hardware. There are 3 tools required to install the BevIQ lock: a Phillips head screwdriver, a 2.5mm Allen driver, and channel lock pliers. The BevIQ lock is assembled and mounted directly on the vending machine. This video will assemble the lock on a table to provide a clear view of the procedure. Warning: do not connect any wiring to the lock until it is fully assembled. The BevIQ handle fits into the BevIQ housing as shown. Note that the mounting and post for the coin release and chute are identical on your existing housing and the BevIQ housing. To begin, unbolt the existing T-handle housing assembly from the vending machine. Disconnect the threaded bolt from the existing T-handle by removing the C-clip, spring, and washer. Next, connect the threaded bolt to the BevIQ handle. When complete, place the T-handle into the housing and attach the spring, washer, and C-clip as shown. Next, mount the BevIQ housing to the vending machine. Next, mount the latch module to the housing. This view shows the retracted position of the bolt, flat with or below the surface of the front flange. The bolt should be in this position when you receive this lock kit from TriTeq. In this view, the bolt is extended. Do not attempt to mount the latch module if the bolt is extended above the surface of the front flange as shown. Do not attempt to push or force the bolt down below the surface of the front flange to the retracted position. For directions on how to put the bolt back into the retracted position, please refer to the end of the video. To provide flexibility in mounting, the latch module is capable of sliding onto and mounting to the housing in 3 different positions on the housing. For example, when the T-handle is mounted horizontally to a door, the latch housing can be mounted at the 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 6 o'clock positions. At least one of these mounting positions will be available and should be chosen such that the latch module will not interfere with any component surrounding the T-handle in your machine. After choosing the most suitable mounting location on the housing, slide the latch module on the housing as follows. Line up the front flange on the latch module with the slot on the housing and begin to slowly slide the flange on the module into the housing slot. Line up the rear flange with the slot on the housing and complete sliding the latch module into the housing while both the front and rear flanges are in the housing slot. The latch module will be fully seated in the housing only when both the front flange is fully seated in the notch at the end of the slot and the latch module's legs are fully seated at the rear of the housing at the fastening location. Fasten the latch module to the housing using 2 number 5 set screws and the 2.5mm Allen driver. Next, connect the latch module connector to the latch module wire harness, then the latch module wire harness to the CPU. The back surface of the receiver is marked as shown. There are 2 receiver mounting brackets to choose from, so select the appropriate one for your application. Note, the orientation of the receiver is critical to the lock operation. The front surface of the receiver must be facing towards the location where the TriTeq key will be pointing to operate the lock. You will need to select a location on the machine to mount the receiver so that the TriTeq electronic key can properly communicate with the lock. The location will vary depending on your machine. You should select the same mounting location on all of your vendors to avoid confusing the route drivers and service personnel. One example location is behind the product selection buttons along the right-hand edge of the door. As shown, the receiver is attached to the frame of the vendor holding the coin acceptor. After swinging the coin acceptor door back to the closed position, the receiver will face into the rear of the selection buttons so the key can be pointed into the button to operate. Note that the button label must be a non-black, transparent color for the infrared signal of the key to operate. In another example, the receiver is attached to the frame of the vendor at the corner of the sign face. You can also position it behind the sign face at a lower location. The receiver will face into the rear of the sign face so the key can be pointed into the sign face to operate. The sign face must be a non-black, transparent color for the infrared signal of the key to operate. In addition, avoid locations near fluorescent bulbs or other light sources to reduce any interference with the communication between the key and the receiver. In a final example, the receiver is mounted on or inside the product delivery chute so the infrared signal can still reach the receiver either directly or through a hole or slot in the chute. The key will be pointed into the product delivery chute to operate the lock. Next, connect the receiver wire harness to the CPU. Connect the power wire harness 6-pin connector to the CPU. After all wiring to the CPU is complete, the CPU can be mounted inside the door of the vendor with the enclosed Velcro fastener or another fastener of your choice. Next, connect the power to the CPU by first disconnecting the MDB power source to the dollar bill validator and next connecting the power harness in series between the MDB and the dollar bill validator. Once fully assembled, the unit is locked by pushing in the T-handle to the latched position. Make sure to overturn the handle about 1/8 of a turn in the clockwise direction, and then turn the handle back in the counterclockwise direction so the handle is free moving before pushing in the handle to the latched position. Once latched, the motor will operate for 3 seconds to move the bolt to the locked position. When accessed by the P1 key, the handle will release within about 3 seconds. Next, mount the 9-volt backup power connector at a location accessible from outside the vendor when the door is closed and locked. One example location is above the product delivery chute, where it can be accessed by reaching into the chute to pull the connector into the product delivery area. A 9-volt battery can be applied to provide temporary power to the lock. When finished, disconnect the battery and restow the connector. The BevIQ lock comes pre-programmed to the P1 factory key code. All locks should be programmed to key codes exclusive to your company with keys you purchase from TriTeq. The programming is simple. Press and hold the small black program button on the CPU until the yellow LED illuminates. Then, point the selected key at the receiver and press the center button. The red or green LED on the key should stay on for 5 seconds. The yellow LED will flash for 20 seconds, indicating that the key code has been accepted. Note that the lock will accept 2 key codes, one from a black route key and one from either a blue or red zone key. You can get as many keys either keyed alike or keyed different to suit your specific needs. In the event of a lock malfunction, please refer to the VendIQ Tech Manual's troubleshooting section. In the event you need to convert the BevIQ lock back to a mechanical lock plug and key, simply follow these steps. Unlock the lock and unscrew and remove the BevIQ latch module. Then remove the round label and front plug from the BevIQ T-handle using a 1/16 Allen wrench. Then insert the lock plug. In the event the bolt is extended prior to mounting, use the following procedure to move the latch bolt from the extended to the retracted position. While the lock is in the fully wired and connected condition, disconnect the main power source and connect the battery so the lock is powered by battery only. With one hand holding the battery, and one hand holding the P1 key, point the key at the receiver and press the button on the key to access the lock. As soon as the bolt retracts, remove the battery power quickly while the bolt is retracted so the bolt remains in the retracted position. Next, proceed to mount the latch module to the housing as described earlier in the video.